Hello and welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Lewis and Kyle Show, where we interview awesome entrepreneurs, thought leaders in a bunch of subjects, investors, and a whole range of fascinating people. In this episode, we chat with Alex Heiden from Closify. More on Closify in a second. Alex comes from one of my favorite guest categories, the under 25 years old business owners who just found ways to get it done and build something awesome pretty fast. Alex is a hustler. He's a sneakerhead, failed dropshipper, turned into a sales closer, and then turned the sales closing skills into a sales closing agency, and then a recruiting firm where he helped other companies hire closers, and eventually creating the hiring platform, which is Closify, where people can buy access to his database of commission-only sales reps and commission-only closers, turning that business into a SaaS, and then creating multiple spin-off SaaSes related to that business and a whole lot more. We start this podcast out talking about his current interests. Then we get into his journey scaling Closify, the best couple of investments he's ever made in himself and in his business. That's coaches, that's training programs, that's educational products. We discuss dropping out of college after 2 years, and as always, a whole lot more. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Alex as much as we did, and I'll switch to it now. Alex, welcome to the Lewis and Kyle Show. I think we're going to have a really fun time chatting today.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm really excited for this.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, I've heard you on a couple other podcasts. I followed your Twitter feed. You have this main business, Closify, which we'll definitely talk about, but it seems like you have, another project kind of in a pre-release beta test group. You keep tweeting that you have all these other ideas and you're kind of seem like you're in a position where you're constantly exposed to interesting things. You've learned how to build a SaaS product. You've learned how to build a service-based product. And what kind of on your workload has you most excited right now? Because it seems like you have like your bread and butter, but there's a lot catching your attention. So I'm curious, what you're really juiced about at the moment.
Yeah, I'm actually in a really interesting position right now because obviously the business that people kind of know me for is Closify, and then I launched a very complementary software company. So basically, Closify is to hire sales reps. Then I launched another software company that's like how to track their KPIs, end of day reporting, forecasting, stuff like that. Which those are both just cool. They both cash flow. They both are going to be able to exit someday. But honestly, the most exciting thing that's actually come across my desk lately is actually I'm back home in Columbus, Ohio. And obviously, I'm sure most people listening have heard of Topgolf, right? You guys are familiar with Topgolf, right? And so
Kyle's been loving golf lately. So Kyle's all about the golf.
I'm not a
Are you about to say something about pickleball?
Yep. So they are building.
Have you? Yeah. Okay. You keep going.
So I played 2 years of college tennis for St. Louis, and it's fun. I love tennis, and leaving college was very weird because that was the first time tennis wasn't my life anymore. So I started playing again. I didn't play from October to March. Started playing again in March. I'm like, oh, dude, this is really fun. I miss it. And then my parents got a house in Naples. I started playing pickleball a lot there. And I was like, dude, this is really fun. And now in Columbus, they're building, think Topgolf, but pickleball. So tons and tons of courts. There's going to be a restaurant. There's going to be a bar.
Is this different from chicken in a pickle?
What's that?
Is this different from chicken in a pickle? That's
I
a venue
believe
coming
so.
to. Okay, that's a venue coming to Las Vegas, Nevada. That's fried chicken and pickleball courts. It's called chicken in a pickle.
One. So this is the
Okay.
second ever This is the second ever location of this one opening, and it's opening right next to our Topgolf. Amazing location, and the people that are building it believe Columbus can be one of the pickleball hotspots, and so they're actually raising money right now. And I mean, again, it's coming from a tennis background, pickleball is just significantly easier. It's very transferable. And so I've already beaten a US Open qualifier in pickleball. And so I'm I just made this little ecosystem up in my head. I was like, dude, I could invest into this pickleball center. And then I could also play, and then I could, push all the people to the center that I own a piece of. And then you can get into like a merch or like a product line and then put it inside the pickleball center. I just started like building this like little ecosystem in my head that has honestly been swarming my thoughts a little bit lately. So like that's like the most exciting to me right now, if that is something that we're to pursue, because that would be kind of like the first time that I could like actually combine passion with like my business mind. Whereas, Closify and my other companies kind of just like strictly business. It's not that I don't like not like those companies. Like, I enjoy them, but at the same time, it's like, am I like kicking my sheets off every morning, like leaping out of bed, just like super excited to like, work on those? Like, not exactly. Whereas it's very easy for me to wake up and, just like go play pickleball with like my family or friends. Like, that's something that's actually fun to me. So that's the most exciting thing that I've had come across my plate recently.
Yeah, dude, I've been talking to people about this idea for a minute because my roommate in college, Jack, his dad is like a pickleball pro in St. Louis. And so he had told me about what Lewis said, like the fried chicken and pickle place. I've got a couple questions for you. One, don't you think that the combination of eating and pickleball, like when I play pickleball, I sweat so much. I don't know if that's a common thing, but like I just, with golf and Top Golf, you're not like breaking a sweat. And that's my only concern with the business model. And then two, just something you should know if you're interested in that business is that pickleball courts are actually the number one amenity in new apartment complexes. And so I think from a demand side for people that are wanting to get into or not get into, it's just going to become much more accessible over the next like 5 to 10 years. So I think you should factor that into whatever models you're looking at.
Right. I mean, the reason that it's like, in my opinion, a pretty decent no-brainer is, one, it is the fastest growing sport in the country, which is just pretty crazy. And two, even if they, especially in somewhere like Ohio, if they build them in apartment complexes, that's cool. But like, they're not going to have league matches at an apartment complex. They're not going to have pro matches at an apartment complex. And they're probably not going to, have like a bubble over them or something. So that way you can play indoors when it's freezing here in the winter. You know what I mean? Like, if I wanted to play pickleball in the winter right now, I genuinely don't know where I would go, except for, maybe there's like gyms where like you can like bring your own net, but then you're like literally playing on like a wooden gym floor. You're not playing on like the actual surface it's supposed to be played on. And so I think the vision is like, it's just going to be like the go-to like epicenter for pickleball in Ohio, or at least for Columbus in general.
I'm missing the business model. Like, what are people paying for? Just a monthly membership, or it's like Top Golf, where it's kind of like you rent a bay?
It's a monthly, so there's two options. I think it's actually very similar to Top Golf, because I think Top Golf bay is like $40 an hour. So the court time is $40 an hour, or there's like a $99 a month membership option where you can go anytime you want except for peak hours. And then you have to factor in they're going to be upselling people to, like private lessons with pros. And then obviously the pros, whatever they're making, part of that goes back to the club, because, they're bringing in the clientele. And then obviously like the food and beverage sales are just also like a large part of it, right? Like I was actually looking into like
booze has to be huge, right?
Yeah, I was looking into Top Golf franchises and like their numbers. And I can't remember the exact percent. I don't remember if it was 20 or 50, but it was a very significant percentage of their sales that comes from food and beverage.
Are liquor licenses difficult to obtain in Ohio? I know in like Pennsylvania, it's very, very difficult, and they're like a neighboring state. So I don't know if that's a consideration.
Honestly, I have no clue. It's like I said, the reason I think it's exciting too is because it's like it's this is unlike something I've ever done before. You know what I mean? It's like very different than online business. And I also have like, when I say I haven't looked into this a ton, like I have no idea like what the returns would be like, or like when I would be expecting like get my money back. Like I haven't looked at any of those important things yet. I just thought like my mind's just like, damn, bro, I'd be sick to say like I own part of this, because like in my mind it's like owning a piece of Top Golf. I'm like, bro, that'd be sick.
Dude, I think that'd be really cool. While we're on the topic, I want to ask you about Nick Kyrgios. What do you think of him?
Honestly, bro, I like him. I know people either love him or hate him. I think he's one of those people that, because of some of the stuff he does on court, he just gets a bad picture painted of him. But I honestly believe he's a pretty good dude. He does a lot of good stuff off court. And then besides that, I mean, just like, he's obviously the most entertaining player to watch. I'm going to be watching him tonight. I think he plays at like 8:30 or 8:45 or something. And then, I mean, it's just ridiculous talent, bro. Like, it's ridiculous. And so to see him,
Dude, he just has the sauce.
He wants to give the 30-second pitch on who he is.
And, like, to see him mature and like compete and actually start to go far at the slams. I mean, I'm really happy for him. I think it's, really good to finally see.
Yeah, I mean, he's just got the sauce. He's a little douchey, but he just has that X factor. I mean, Lewis, he's just a spectacle of a tennis player. Like, he'll like throw his racket down in the middle of a game. He'll cuss out the I don't even know what they're called. He's cussed out fans. He's cussed out opponents. He's cussed out his like own team while he's there, and he gets fined every single time. It's kind of like the Jordan like red shoe thing, He just gets fined for everything every match. And I guess tennis is another one of those like country club sports. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but it's like there's a certain spirit to the game. Yeah, and he just doesn't care at all.
It's so like, funny because it's supposed to be like the most like gentleman's and like country club sport, and like for the most part it is, except for like college tennis. College tennis is like just like ridiculous and nonstop heckling. Like, it's honestly funny. It's like, if anyone like that had never been to like a college tennis match, like, and they were expecting something similar to what you just said, went to one, like, you'd be like so shocked because you'd be like, dude, this is like not what I thought tennis was supposed to be like. But like, back to your point, I mean, like, yeah, Nick does a lot of stuff that like, I obviously don't agree with on the court, but again, I think he does do a lot of like good stuff off court. Like, I do think he's like a good dude. He just, can't control his emotions on the court.
Kyle brought up shoes. You sold shoes in high school. Was that like a sneaker flipper? Like what's the website called? It's like the green one with the logo, and you know what I'm talking about? The watches, StockX. Is that like a StockX flipper, or were you like a Zoomies at the mall? Like,
it was. I would sell. So it was actually, I honestly got really good at it, and the reason I got onto it because I've only ever had one summer job or one real job ever, and I was actually just like working at tennis courts, like basically like sitting in the pro shop, like doing court rent. Like, it was. I made $900 all summer. Like, it was horrible. And so I was like, okay, how can I make more money than $900? So I started flipping shoes, and it got to the point where someone was like, if you just make relations with like the managers and stuff, you can get them to hold limited releases for you that, you can go and flip. So I started just like, and I'm like a 16-year-old kid. So it was kind of like, I was like, how am I going to like make friends with like these managers and like not just like have them like kick me out or whatever? Because like, if it's technically not allowed for them to hold you shoes or whatever. And so I just started like buying snacks for managers and like bringing it to them like on their shifts and stuff. I'd be like, hey dude, I'm gonna like go to Annie Ann's and get a pretzel. Like, you want anything? And like, they'd be like, sure, I guess. And so like, I'd bring them like a snack, and then like, there's even one of them that like was into tennis too. So like, we would talk about tennis, and I built rapport there. And eventually I kind of just like built up the nerve, and I was like, dude, I don't even remember. It was one of the Yeezy drops. I don't even remember which one. I was like, dude, like, I really want to snag a couple pairs of these. I was like, do you think you could hold a couple pairs for me? And I was like, I'll slide you like some cash on top of every pair that you hold for me. And he was like, yeah, dude, like, I got you. And I was like, oh shit. And so then all of a sudden after that, all I had to do was just text him and be like, bro, I want pairs of these. And he would hold them. And it got to the point that I think it was the really ugly ones. I don't remember what they're called anymore, because they weren't like 750. I think they're like 500 somethings. I don't know. They're like the really ugly, like blocky Yeezys. I don't even remember what they're called, but I got like 22 pairs. And I remember I sold them all to a local buyer that like bought them all in cash that I like had networked with in line at like one of these places. And he bought like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think I made like $7,000 off all of those pairs. And I was like, holy, Like I had never seen that type of money before, let alone in a day. And then I kept like doing that, like rinse and repeat. And then once I went to college, though, I didn't have a car and I didn't have that like a connection in St. Louis. So I was like, shoot, I gotta look for something to make money remote now. And that was kind of how the rabbit hole started of how do I make money online?
Yeah. I missed in the chronology of your story how many semesters you spent in school.
Yeah, I did 2 years. I guess I technically left a little bit early in my very final semester. I just literally left school like a week before the semester officially ended. And then obviously I didn't even have a full year my first year because the thing not to be named hit. I left early my sophomore year because once I started actually making some decent money, the focus very much so shifted to business from school. I had a 3.9 my freshman year. I think my GPA my sophomore year was like it was like a 1.7 or like a 2.0. Like it was horrible. Like I wasn't turning stuff in. I even forgot to take my midterm exam. And then my coach was just like, basically said, your grades suck. Like, I'm not going to let you play until your grades come up. But there were no more grades until finals. So I just left.
And at that point, what was the business you were doing? Was that your sales agency?
I was actually in Closify. And it was very interesting timing because I remember very clearly the night I left and the night that I got home to Columbus, Ohio was the night that I paid the invoice for our developer to start building the new platform that was actually going to be like a more legitimate platform because the MVP was like super crappy. So I remember I like got home, ate some dinner, and then I just remember typing in the credit card number to pay that invoice. And it was like the most money I've ever spent at once, like by far. I think it was like $6,000 or something, which was like a lot of money for me at the time. And so I just remember like paying that invoice and just like I knew I wasn't going back to school next semester. So I was like typing that in and I was like, shoot, this is it. It's like all in now, like just left school early, just dropped $6,000 to build this thing. Like it's time to go all in and take this seriously.
Yeah, I like the drama of being able to drive home from school because like I went to school in Alabama, I live in Las Vegas, so there was no like definitive like uh-oh moment, like whatever, like I'm doing this thing, I'm just gonna drive for 24 hours now. It's like
Exactly.
but you can have like an F this, I'm gonna drive like 6 hours north or whatever it is from St. Louis.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I literally just like decided I was like, you know what? If he tells me I can't play. It was still like, not lockdown era, but like restriction era. So the social life was really whack. There wasn't much to do. It was boring. We lived in not a dump of an apartment, but like it wasn't nice. It was a college apartment. So I was like, screw it, leaving, going home, driving home, and I just left.
Yeah. What did your parents think? I know you said that your dad and your family is like 6 generations of corporate finance. Like, how did that conversation go for you? Were they supportive?
Yeah, it was actually really that was probably has been like my biggest blessing so far is that like obviously most people's parents wouldn't love the idea, but they were really supportive because it was probably definitely a interesting 3 months for them because the other thing is they didn't even really criticize me for how badly I did in school, which normally they would have. So it was like a really interesting span of months that they supported me through because it went from I didn't fail out, but like just did horrible in school. And then I left, knew I wasn't going back. And then I kind of like sprung it on them one day. I was like, hey, my business partner said I should move to Miami. So I'm going to move to Miami. And they were like, huh? And I was like, yeah, like I'm just going to, and I literally told them, I was like, I booked a plane ticket to go visit tomorrow. So I'm going to go look at some apartments and hopefully sign a lease while I'm there. And they were like, what? I just like sprung it on them. They were like, okay. And then I like got back and I was like, yeah, I'm moving to Miami at the end of September. And they were super supportive the whole time. I mean, it definitely helped that I was I was making money at the time and I had a cash reserve. So it wasn't like I didn't need a cosign on my apartment or like anything like that. So it wasn't like super like, it wasn't like a dropout with like no plan type thing. It was, at least it was like, okay, I'm like leaving school, but I have this company, it's going for me, it's cash flowing for me, I'm able to pay myself, yada yada yada.
And I imagine you can be pretty convincing as a closer. So
yeah, I mean, I was lucky I didn't even have to tap into those skills too much, because I was gonna do it regardless, because I was like, okay, like, obviously when they were paying for my life, they have a certain amount of leverage over me, but I was like, I'm completely off payroll now, so like if they tell me I can't do it, like they can't actually stop me. Like I was just gonna go anyways.
They probably realized that too, and that might have been why you didn't have much much pushback. So have you been in Miami for around a year now?
Yeah, just shy of a year. End of this month will be 1 year.
So what's your take? What do you think of the city, of the culture? I guess, coming from a Midwestern background like you, it's a lot different, right? It's a lot different culture, a lot different people.
I think the best part has probably been, the network there. Like a lot of my friends there do very well. The weather's amazing. Our apartment is amazing. We got really lucky. We moved into it was literally, it opened 1 month before we moved into it. So brand new apartment building, amazing amenities, like 2 jacuzzis, a pool, steam room, sauna, rooftop, like just out of this world. Like the first month I was like, it was just so strange. So it's like, I feel like I'm on a 24/7 vacation for a month straight, which was like just a weird feeling. It's obviously easy to get distracted in Miami. So, you definitely need to be a little bit more disciplined, because it's pretty easy to indulge in some of the nightlife and, other things, which I'm personally like pretty over, like the club scene in Miami, like did it for a little bit, but like, I think that's incredibly overrated. By far the most fun thing to do in Miami is to charter yachts, just like 50, 60-foot yachts, get a couple of your buddies to go, do it on the weekends. We'd probably do it like twice a month. By far favorite thing to do in Miami. Besides that, just like the weather. We go out to dinner a lot. We live right next to like this giant outdoor mall. You might know, like the city center, if you've been there. And so we'll go get dinner there a couple times a week, which is one of our favorite things to do. But I mean, it's definitely like, I'm glad I moved there. Like it's obviously a lot better than Ohio. I've flown my hometown buddies out a couple times. So I mean, all in all, I mean, I really like it. I don't think I'll live there like long term, just because it's obviously a very fast paced and crazy place. But it's definitely somewhere that I like always want to have a condo. So that way, like I can always go back there for, a couple months out of the year if I want to.
I think that's awesome. And you said it was a 24/7 vacation, but I think your business did double like the first month you were there anyway. So I don't know how you managed that one.
It's a very strange feeling. And I actually after we doubled the first month, because I truthfully, my first month there, I mean, I didn't just like slack off and do nothing, but it got to the point where that was kind of like it was just like some of the first times that we had the free cash flow to like buy back my time, right? And to like reinvest into new hires, like bring on like a little project manager to do some like tedious things. And we hired like an SEO agency, like a lead gen agency. We brought on like another sale, like, all those things that, would used to like maybe take up some of my time. And I actually like called or texted one of my business partners, and I was like, dude, I honestly like, I feel like guilty, or like, I feel like bad, because like I made the most amount of money I've ever made this month, but I like didn't work much. And he told me some really good advice that's honestly stuck with me for a while. And he's like, after like flipping shoes and like being a closer yourself, he's like, you're used to like hustling to make money. But he's like, you hustle to make 6 figures, but he's like, if you want to make 7 or 8 figures, he's like, the only thing that you need to focus on now is like who to hire and like in what order. He's like, that's really all you focus on. He's like, you go find things in the business and then it's like, okay, who can I go find to do this? And then like, in what order should you be hiring those people? And I thought that was like really good advice, because he's like, again, if you're a CEO and you're doing a little bit of lead gen, you're doing a little bit of sales, you're doing fulfillment, you're working with your dev, you're working with client success, like you're not a CEO, like you're just like another employee in your business. You know what I mean? And so, he was like, yeah, you really just want to be looking at who to hire. And so when he told me that, like, the mindset shifted. And then I actually, coincidentally, I started paying myself less. And the reason that I started paying myself less as well is what I noticed is I started to get very emotionally attached to money. I mean, if we had like a really, really good month, I'm like ecstatic. I'm on top of the world. I'm like riding the super high. But on the contrary, if our next month was lower, then I felt horrible. I was like, dude, like, what am I screwing up? Like, and I was just going to like this big, like low feeling, like not like depressed, but just like felt crappy. And so I was like, okay, how do I like stay an even keel? And so the answer is I actually just started paying myself the same fixed amount every month, an amount where I can, pay rent, pay for, gas and insurances and food and all, a little bit of fun. And so I was like, I'm just going to pay myself the same flat rate every single month. If it's a super big month, cool, but I'm just going to take that money and go hire someone else anyways. And if it's, a little bit less a month, like, cool, I'm still getting paid the same amount. Like, it's no biggie. And so doing, those two kind of like shifts of like, okay, who can I go hire and who should I hire in what order? And then paying myself the same amount every single month, no matter what. Those were like the two really big mindset shifts for me, because it's easy to get caught up in a cash flow game, but my businesses right now aren't cash flow businesses. They're exit plays. You know what I mean? So like when I exit them, that's when I'll get to, realize like the fruits of my labor.
What has your experience been hiring and or working with friends? Because, my co-founder in the data company I've been working with, he's long-time best friends. And I think, I don't know if you live with your roommate also as a business partner, or if he's an employee or any of those things, but I definitely think you've like played in that arena. So what have you had things go poorly? Have you had built systems that have corrected or just get it right from the start? Like, what's been the reason has been successful?
I think we got lucky because I knew him in high school, and like we had mutual friends in high school, but we didn't really get close until like very end of our senior years. And then we both departed to college. He went to Washington State University on the very far West Coast, and I was in St. Louis. So we were like super far away. We'd like text occasionally. Like we didn't talk a lot in college, really. We'd like, now every once in a while I'd be like, yo, like, do you see this new business idea? Like whatever. But like we didn't talk a ton. Then one day I was like, dude, I have more sales calls for clients than I can handle. Can I like train you on sales and like you take calls to me? And he was like, yeah, I'm down. And so like we actually like grew closer together because we started doing business together. We weren't like super close before. And so I think that helped us a lot because one, we've both seen like what we've both done for the business and like respect what each other have done for the business. So like he's our sales director now. So he like manages our sales team. And, I know a lot of people advocate against doing friends with your business, but we've quite literally like never had an argument. Like, but if we were, we're also very, very much so the type of people that could like be straight with one another and be like, hey, like this is bothering me. Like this has been an issue. Like, let's sit down and figure it out. But I've told people this the other time, like, I don't need an employee to be, or even like a partner. Like it's one thing, like, yes, like talent helps. And like, yes, like certain characteristics help. Like I want someone to be, whenever I'm hiring, like the number one thing I really look for is hunger, like someone that wants to, grow in the business and someone that's going to, do what they have to do, but then, and more, right? Like I don't ever want to work with someone that I say, hey, here's your KPI. And like their goal is just to meet KPI every month. Like, no, I want you to smash through it. But at the end of the day, what's really important to me is, loyalty. And so, I think if you know someone for long enough, or if you get to know someone well enough, like you can, at least I think I can gauge if someone's, going to be loyal. And, that's the most important thing to me, because I've seen some pretty messed up, kind of like partnership stories of where like they thought a partner was a really good friend, or they thought an employee was a really good friend. They obviously, they steal like processes, and they steal like IP, and they go and start like competing or like helping competitors, or like, all of these different things. And, that's like where it gets really messy. And so like, for me, honestly, the most important thing to me is that, is loyalty, and that they're not going to, go and try to screw me over.
Yeah, you can't let the fear of that happening stop you from working with people that you really care about, like your friend. I think that that's really incredible that you guys knew each other even before college, and were able to come together and build this business. So when did you hire your performance coach, and what were the things that he initially taught you that you made it worth it?
Yeah, that was probably the hardest investment I ever made, because everything else up until that point had been a business investment, meaning it was like very direct ROI. It'd be like, you like spend $100 and you're expecting to make like 150 back, whatever the case may be. And so it was very expensive too. It was like $5,000 for 90 days. And so I was like, $5,000 for like fitness coach, and I had like a bit of an ego with like the fact that I already thought I was in good shape because of like college tennis. But then he explained how like he would help me get my sleep better, my diet better, like work routines better, etc. And so I was like, on our first sales call, I was like, dude, like I just like don't know if I see like the return there. And then I remember he texted me one day, and so I guess it's important to know I had to wake up at 5 a.m. every day for practice, and I wouldn't get to bed until like midnight, maybe even 12:30, because I was taking sales calls and doing outreach and all this other stuff. So I kid you not when I say I had to like put like 5 ice cubes in my coffee after practice and chug a cup of coffee before my first class, or else my head would just be slamming on the table every 5 minutes. Like that's not even an exaggeration. And so I remember, and I would drink coffee like all throughout the day up until like 4 p.m. because I just couldn't stay awake because I was always so exhausted and drained. And I remember I was like sitting at like my coffee table, drinking coffee at like 4 p.m., feeling exhausted still. And he texted me and he was like, dude, like, let's just get you in at 3K for 90 days. Like, I'll give you 2K off. Like, let's just get you in. Like, I want to work with you, etc. And I was sitting there and I was like, dude, like, I'm so tired. Like, I got to try something. And so started working with him in like November of 2020. And first thing he told me to do was to, despite how hard it might be, was to eliminate caffeine by noon. And then he had me get blue light blocking glasses. He had me do like a brain dump before I went to, like, no phone an hour before bed, and then like brain dump in that like last hour before bed of like literally just like how you thought you did today, like business wise, personal wise, athletically wise. Just kind of like write some stuff down just to like wind down or whatever. And then he had me, start waking up at the same time every day, which I already was. But then he had me, he told me to try the cold shower a bit. I kind of did the cold shower thing, like not really. I would just kind of like dunk my head under some cold water, which like helped to a degree. I don't do anything like that anymore. But I was like, all right, like I know it's like cliche, but I was like, I'll give it a try. So I would like dunk my head in cold water in the morning. And then probably the most helpful thing though that like he had me do was, I used to just be like a very sporadic worker. I'd be like, oh, okay, like I should probably do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He had me the night before plan out my next day. So I'd be like, okay, I get back from class or whatever this time. So like my first work block is from like 90-minute work block. And then he would have me write down like the 3 most important things I need to do. And then inside of those 90 minutes, how long I'm allocating to each one. And then no phone during that work block, like it's in another room. And I just started getting like a day's worth of work done in 90 days. It's like my productivity shot through the roof. And then eventually, he also got me on like bone broth, which is just like good for your skin and stuff. But yeah, productivity went through the roof. And so then the business did start to grow even more so as a result. So it was honestly a really good investment, but I don't work with him anymore.
The bone broth, how did he, what was his prescription for the bone broth?
He had sent me like a specific brand at one point. I don't actually remember. He makes his own like homemade now. I don't remember which one it was, but I mean, we still like drink.
But you just like drink it though? Like,
yeah, well, it was actually funny.
Is there,
you just like buy it at like Whole Foods, but he actually like told me even at one point to like put butter in it, which like sounds like gross, but like it honestly wasn't like horrible. It's like butter actually does. I don't know if you noticed. I actually did this for the longest time. This sounds gross to me. People put butter in their coffee. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, Kyle and I both have been in and out of the butter phase. I still like it. There's a lot of context for when it's right. Mm-hmm. Kind of depends on how many carbs are in your diet and what point you eat your carbs.
Okay, so
I don't know.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I've heard of people doing like a 24-hour fast and then crushing bone broth to like reinvigorate their gut health. So I didn't know if there was some certain like, dosing or timing to it, but it sounds like you just drank it.
Yeah, it was just like an every morning. It was partially, it was like, one, it's like good for like your gut, like your skin, like hair, etc. But also I was actually trying to bulk up because in college, like the last time I had myself like checked, I was like 8% body fat. I was like, I'm 5'11". I was like 148 pounds. Like I was like,
Holy.
I was lean. And so I was like trying to like, I couldn't eat enough because I was burning like 3,500 calories a day. And so he was like, this will get you like some extra like protein and calories and stuff.
That's what I was saying to Kyle about this. I was going to drink a LaCroix during this podcast, but will make me eat less. And like eating is a weakness of mine. Like the bubbles, some people just stay lean, and you got to like like I'm my own performance coach for like the stuff that I'm like, I could do that. I could chew that gum, but like, I know I'll be less hungry and I need to eat more. Otherwise I'll be like a stick forever.
Yeah, that's not my problem. Strengths and weaknesses.
I don't think Kyle and I would hire the same performance coach.
Yeah.
Unless he's really got a wide degree of specialties. I want to ask you about a different investment you made on the business side. I know you spent like $4,800 on Iman Gadzhi's course or community. I don't know the right term for it. But kind of overall, and maybe like to this day, how do you evaluate? I know like I've watched a lot of Iman's videos, and I think he's a very authentic figure. And I like, I think that if you spend enough time with like him as a consumer, like you get a layer of trust, and maybe that's your answer for like how you would do it generally. But how did you vet like that opportunity as like, because I think a lot of people, like there are so many horror stories, both with personal coaches and with like business courses of someone saying, I spent $2,000 on this course and it was garbage. And then there are people who are like, like Alex Hormozy with, I spent $100,000 for a day with Russell Brunson. And then it's like, that's the point where his like entire career hockey sticks. And it's, so there's horror stories, then there's like amazing stories in both directions.
Alex, I know you said that you spent $50K in I think 12 months on courses and things like Lewis is talking about. So even you've seen it all.
Yeah, I've seen it all. Honestly, like it ended up being the best investment of my life, probably, but for the completely not for the reason that I bought it for. So I bought it when I was running my sales agency still, and I was on a call with the sales guy, and I was like, hey, I know your other students don't run sales agencies. They're like marketing agencies and whatnot. I was like, you think it's still applicable? And I'm, of course, it was like, yeah, it's like the same strategies and whatnot. So I was like, whatever, I'll jump in. It was a lot of money for me. And there was like at the time, it's now on Discord. At one point it was on Telegram, but at this point it was on WhatsApp. It was a group chat. And I think at the time there were like 100-ish people in there that were all, more advanced agency owners doing at least 10K a month or more. And eventually they learned that I was like a sales agency, or like people just started knowing me as like the sales guy. And like, they started like just asking me questions on how I handle objections. And they started asking me to review call recordings. And then they started asking if they could work with my sales agency. And then I was like, sure, like we're $1,000 a month plus 25% commission. They were like, oh, like Iman preaches high margins. So they were like, we're not going to pay $1,000 a month and 25% commission. And then all of a sudden people were like, but can you go find me a sales rep? And so sure enough, I became this recruiter. And, eventually at one point, once I kind of formed this, I talked to other people that had worked with recruiters of why they hated recruiters. The big one being, these recruiters make more money on sales training than they do placing sales reps. They make most of their money from sales training. But, if again, I preach this a ton on Twitter, on LinkedIn, everywhere. You can watch all the Jordan Belfort videos in the world. You can go to the best video sales training in the world. I put you on your first sales call ever, you're going to suck. Like, it's just as simple. Like, it's like if you showed me like a bunch of UFC videos or a bunch of fighting videos, and then you put me in the ring, like I'm going to get my ass kicked. Like, it's a very similar thing. Like, you need to actually get repetitions in. And so I formed that thesis. I was like, why am I trying to train people to like sell for these agency owners? Like, why don't I just go find people that have already sold for agencies and like verify they've sold for agencies successfully? And so I said in that WhatsApp group chat, I was like, yo, like 5 of you, I'm going to give 5 of you sales reps for free. I just want a testimonial, assuming they perform for you. And the first guy that I placed, his sales rep closed his first ever sales call for him, ended up closing like 20% higher than the founder, which is actually like not normal. Like that's like unheard of. Normally the founder is going to sell their business better than anyone else. And it got to the point where they were like, I was like friends with the sales rep too. And the sales rep was like, yeah, I'm actually like flying to Greece to go party with, my client now that you introduced me to. And I was like, what the heck? And then sure enough, they like called me or FaceTimed me one day and they're like, look, dude, like we're like partying in Greece together. And so it was just like wild. And so I was like, dude, like this is a hit. And then I was like, but that was like a lot of work for like 5 clients. I had to go do all the recruitment, and then I was like, had to vet them, and then I had to interview them, and then I had to place them in the business. I was like, that's like a lot of human labor. I was like, how can I take the human labor out of this? And the answer was to turn it into a self-serve hiring platform and also do the recruitment, but to let the clients interview and hire for themselves, and do the ramping process. And so then, I was able to remove myself. I was able to make it more affordable. I was able to make it faster. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, this is a no-brainer. This is so much better than working with recruiters. And we kind of just blew up.
So, but it's an awesome story. But at the outset, basically, like, how do you look at that training program or like a hypothetical coach or whatever? And like how do you frame the risk reward? Because again, you said like the reason it was useful to you wasn't something you knew at the outset, or maybe it was something you expected, just, well, I'm with high level people and something good will happen maybe. But like, how did you evaluate it before? Because in hindsight, right, it's obvious, right? Spent 4,800, found an opportunity to print making 500 over and over and over again. But you didn't know that at the outset. So like, and I'm sure you've bought things since then. Like, what do you look for on the front end before you know that things will or won't work out?
So the reason that I personally trusted Iman was he was very open about the fact that he still ran an agency as he was teaching about it. And I think that's very important because business in general, not just agency specific, it's like a very fast changing game. Like what worked last month doesn't necessarily work this month. So most of the coaches and course creators out there, it's a funny coincidence because they actually started their course or coaching program because they actually failed or got capped out at what they were actually teaching. Like the amount of agency owners that I've either seen fail or get capped out at like 10, 20K a month, that they're like, oh, okay, instead I'm just going to go show a bunch of people how to get to 10, 20K a month. And it's like, are you quote unquote credible because you got to 10 to 20K a month yourself once? Like maybe, but like, it's just such a, that could have been 2 clients. So it's like, do you necessarily understand client acquisition? Do you not necessarily understand sales processes? Because most people, when most people teach sales in courses that I've seen, like, yeah, they'll talk about how to handle objections and stuff, but it's nothing that you can't go find on YouTube. Like, for example, and I didn't even know about this until like 2 months ago when I talked to someone that grew a software company. This may be one of the better investments I've made. He grew a software company from 60K a month to 600K a month in about a year, and all through building a sales team, end-to-end sales team, SDRs and closers, and sales enablement. So sales enablement is the different softwares that you give your salespeople, and so we spent 15 grand for a completely custom HubSpot build. And so these people, when they talk about sales process, they just talk about closing. They just talk about handling objections and building rapport and whatnot, where it's like the amount of automations and workflows and like in our HubSpot CRM. So this is something like 99% of agency owners won't even have. We have what's called multi-touch point attribution. So we can see if a lead has how many times they visited our website. We can see if they're connected with us on LinkedIn. We can see if they've seen any of our ads. We can see like what other content or like marketing material of ours they've opted into. And so based on all of those things, HubSpot's going to give them a lead score from like 1 to 10. And then what we do in HubSpot is as soon as that lead score breaks a certain threshold, it'll add a task for one of our sales reps to call them and literally say, hey, I see you've seen our ad, connected with us on LinkedIn and opted into our free program. Like it's time, let's talk. Like you're clearly interested. Like let's, you want sales reps, let's get you sales reps. And so like, back to the like original point, like so many of these people that are teaching, like they don't even know multi-touch point exists. They don't even know that go high level is not the CRM that you're going to scale to $250,000 a month with. Like there's so much they don't know. And there's so much that I don't even know. And so the only reason, and I know most of them don't even run their own business anymore. And so the reason I trusted Iman is because he was very open about it. He had real sales calls that he recorded and put in his course, and real client ad accounts that he'd put in his course. Like there was transparency, and it was, to my knowledge, like really the only agency program where there's a level of transparency.
Yeah. What do you think the difference between a salesperson, like average run of the mill sales guy, but between him and a closer?
Wait, can you clarify?
Let me ask you. Yeah, let me ask you a different question. What is the X factor that a closer has?
Yeah, so it's very easy to just like see you have 5 calls scheduled on the day and be like, oh, I'm just gonna take these calls and then call it a day. It's a different one to be, between every break you have, every no-show you have, you dig into your CRM, you start nailing follow-ups, you start calling old leads, trying to re-engage old people. Those are the people that go the furthest when they have that hunger that I brought up earlier. I had a sales rep like that earlier in the year. Any break he had, he was sending messages on LinkedIn to new prospects, even though he didn't have to prospect, he was a closer. But he was always trying to keep his pipeline full, and he would be cold calling old leads that had gone cold for a while. And, he would be cold emailing, he would be doing all this extra stuff. And he just started smashing it for us. And he actually set ambitious goals. He was like, hey, this is what I want like my income growth to look like. And he mapped it out, and we made a plan for him to hit that. And sure enough, like he hit it.
I like that question a lot, the X factor question. Alex, how do you use Twitter and stay productive? Because that's something I kind of always like it's kind of a cycle, right? Where it's similar to like the coffee cycle, right? Where like, some of this is good for X reason. And then because of like the nature of it, you end up having too much. And then you're like, this whole thing is the devil. And then after a while, you're like, I should be using Twitter again. And how do you, seems like you've avoided that cycle.
So Twitter is one, it's like, I attribute I met my very first mentor through Twitter. I actually have a business partner that I met on Twitter that helped me grow tremendously. I was very anti-scheduling tweets for a very long time. I thought it just kind of like felt like inauthentic and like, maybe quote unquote, like not me. But then if like, you're just like to your point, you're like sitting throughout the day, like it's time to like put a tweet out. It's been a while. Okay, let me think of a tweet. It's like, okay, like, yeah, it's a good tweet it out. Like hour later goes by. Okay, I should probably tweet again. I should tweet like 5-6 times a day. Like, let me think of a tweet. Think about it, type it up, like, or let's do a thread, type it out, tweet. And then you're just like killing dead time. And so scheduling helps normally, and I actually haven't been doing it lately. I actually haven't scheduled content in like 2 to 4 weeks, which is like, I kind of just like needed a little like reset the last like month. I wasn't like burnt out per se, but I kind of just wanted to like take a step back and like ease off of everything I was doing. So like while I was home, basically, like kind of just like spend more time with family and friends and whatnot. Normally what I'll do is I'll just schedule a week's worth of content every Sunday night. And then if I am going to like spend time like engaging, like trying to like DM people to build like new connections, or whatever, I'll like set a designated time to do that. But Twitter's never been like, it really hasn't been that distracting to me. Like, I don't really get too interested in scrolling Twitter and like reading through, like, there's like very few people whose like threads I actually want to read. So when they do, like, I see them and I read them. But besides that, there's not many people's tweets that I'm interested in.
I think a lot of people listening to this will be interested in, apologies if this is a question you get pretty often, but a lot of people will be like, I could be a closer and Closify is going to connect me to all these great things. Like who, at what point is someone a good fit? Like, are you accepting people? Like, what's from the other half of the marketplace, like the closer side of the marketplace? What's the outlook for that kind of status quo?
We actually just rolled out a new offer. So it's actually been very difficult to become a closer for Closify up until this point, because to my point, like earlier, we're like experienced people simply like, and by the way, we've split tested it like probably 100 times now. Like literally every time an experienced closer is going to outperform a non-experienced closer. Like we've taken sales reps from the quote unquote like best like sales training programs, like multiple different best sales training programs, and they all got outperformed by experienced sales reps. So if they want to, so basically we have two different types of like closers right now. We have like our experienced and verified, and then we have unverified. Now, literally just like as of yesterday. Experience, like you normally have to have sold like a minimum of $100,000 in one of our clients' niches. So like if you've done like insurance sales, like that doesn't count. It's got to either be like marketing agencies or like info products, business coaches, B2B SaaS, like remote solar. Like if you've sold like 100K plus in one of those niches, like yeah, you'll go into like our verified closer pool, assuming you can show proof of experience. And then you'll be working with like our flagship offer clients, the ones that pay us, more money. But then we just rolled out two new offers. So like one's a lower ticket plan for business owners, but the difference is they can only post job opportunities that only unverified closers can apply for. And so that's not to say they're bad job opportunities, and that's not to say they're bad closers. They just haven't been verified by us. And so they're going to pay less money for that because it doesn't require any human labor from us. Like anyone can just go sign up as that closer type. So we're saying, hey, we haven't verified these people. They just signed up on their own. So it's less expensive if you want them to apply to your jobs.
I think that's really smart. I like that a lot. I think that'll, create a flywheel, more people in the funnel on both sides, which is what you want as Closify.
So we're gonna then upsell the close and say, hey, if you want to be verified, you can apply for a call. And then
exactly. Then the verification is just there, however they do for these people that are also paying you, right?
Yeah.
So if they're like a killer, yeah.
And so I actually had like this big epiphany probably like a month and a half ago. I was just like laying in my bed and it happens probably I don't know if you guys have ever noticed. Every couple months there'll just be like a night where you just like can't sleep. Like at least for me, that's like I'm just like staring at the ceiling at like 3 a.m. I just like have this epiphany. And I'm like, we're like a platform or marketplace business model, but we're like competing like recruiters. Like platform and marketplaces are supposed to be like a volume game. Like we need more closers, more business owners, all mixing and matching together. Like we need volume. And so I was like, but how do we get it? Because we get so much traffic to our website because our SEO is amazing. We're like top tier at booking sales calls through end to end, but like a pretty small percent we're like doing well enough to pay for our flagship offer. And so we're like, there's all this traffic that we're not capturing a penny from. And so we were like, and so then it just like hit me. And I was like, I honestly felt dumb for not doing it sooner. I was like, it was in this room. So then I saw a Hormozy video and he was like, you get to 6 figures. I don't know if he said 6 or 7. He's like, you either get to 6 or 7 figures by getting predictable client acquisition, and you get to like multi 7 or 8 figures by extracting more revenue out of each lead or customer that comes in. And so I was like, well, dude, we have tons of leads coming into our funnel every single month, but to his point, we're only getting money out of a very small percentage out of them. And so I kind of just had this epiphany moment where I was like, we need to be a volume game. And so I had my devs building this new feature, and it like literally just went live yesterday.
Cool. Go check it out, everybody. If you own a business, if you're a closer,
if you're an aspiring closer now, right? If you're an unverified,
get on the Closify train.
Yeah.
I think it's cool because you kind of present less of like there's like an argument for like a nice aura of like exclusivity and eliteness, but it's also like on the other side, it's like gatekeeping sort of, right? It's like, oh, you're not good enough, you can't afford us, right? And now it's like, here's a path, right? It's like when you're ready, you can like prove yourself in the, I don't even know what I want to call it, like the sparring court or whatever, just the trial area, like prove yourself there and we'll let you in. Just like, you don't know where to get experience, just go try. And now you can like serve those people. And it like will keep a lot of people from being turned off from you as like a brand who like thinks, they're snooty or whatever. It's like, we're not snooty. We just like have a business to run and like, it's not going to work out for you. But now it's,
and like the closers who are verified, they become more in demand because they're now the like SEAL Team 6 or whatever versus like, makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even tell you how many closers we've turned down over the last year that I was like, shoot, I could have been getting $25 a month out of probably like 1,000 people. I was like, shoot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, Alex, where should we send our listeners? where should they go to learn more about you? Maybe some tennis highlights.
I know you're doing YouTube now.
Closify.
That's another project. I don't know what the
Yeah.
main single destination is.
Let the people know.
Yeah, honestly, the most interesting place would be probably the place where you'll get the most value out of either following me or connecting with me on Twitter, just at AlexH459. Or if you search Alex from Closify, you'll probably find me somewhere. That'd definitely be the best place.
Alexify from Closify.
Yeah, exactly.
We greatly appreciate your time. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. That was awesome.
That will wrap up this episode with Alex from Closify. 3 takeaways from me, and then we'll be on our way. The first one is about the importance of listening to signals and just, quote, doing something, right? So Alex needed to replace his shoe sneakerhead business, and he just started doing online stuff, right? He started drop shipping. He started buying courses on how to be a salesperson. And then when the first thing that worked, meaning taking the course, realizing he was good at on the phone sales, and just leaning into the signal of like, of all the things I've tried, this is the first thing to work, selling these courses on behalf of other people, being the closer. And then that led to getting a high volume of that, which led to creating an agency for doing that, which led to him signing up for, agency growth tutorials, which led to him joining a community, which led to him finding a problem, which led to him fixing that problem, which led to him finding another problem and then fixing that problem subsequently. Anyway, the whole story is just, he did stuff, right? He didn't just sit and look at a whiteboard and come up with ideas. He tried stuff and was willing to fail, lose money drop shipping, lose money doing these other things. But eventually he found one thing that worked and then just followed the signal all the way to where he's at now, with Closify being this really impressive business. That brings me to my next point, which is hustling got him from A to B, right? From feeling like he needs school to get a job, or feeling like he needs school to be economically secure as an adult, or feeling like he needs a job to be economically secure as an adult. But once he got to that point, that same hustler attitude wasn't going to get him from B to C, right? The proverbial 6 figures to 7 figures, surviving to thriving. He needs that strategic thinking. He needs to put other people in place and just think big picture. That was takeaway number 2. And then takeaway number 3 was his willingness to take risks and invest in himself. I saw him put out this tweet, and I listened to another video from this guy, Alex Hormozy. He's pretty cool. Check him out. Who has, the S&P 500 versus the S and Me 500. Really cliche. You're probably going to hear it everywhere now. I feel like I'm going to be late to the party on it. But who cares? It's a good expression. Cliches can be useful, and this one will be a cliche because it's so good. But he invested $3,000 in coaching. He invested $5,000 in this community, and those were substantial investments at the point in time when he made them. But again, not every investment worked out. He probably put thousands of dollars into drop shipping, lost money. But it's the willingness to continue to invest in yourself, confident that some of them will pay off 10 to 20x. That led to him having those outsized results eventually. Now, I've put a lot of money into this podcast over the years with the idea and the hypothesis and the confidence that through doing it, I'll, meet people, learn things, etc., come up with ideas that will be so useful. It'll greatly 100x the, hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars a year just to maintain this. It takes a while to pay off because it's not clear which of those bets, which online courses will be useful, which conversations will be insightful, but one of them will. And when it is, and I mean, many of them have, right? Many of them have led to things like my past jobs, like, et cetera. It's just continuing to know that when you invest in yourself, the returns aren't as predictable as like the 8% on the S&P, but they can be super monumentally rewarding, the S and Me. That's all I have to say for this conversation with Alex. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to know about the next episode. Check out Espresso Displays if you want to have the power of 2 monitors everywhere you go. Links in the bio for all of that. And say hey on social media. Kyle and I are easy to find if you want to get in touch for any reason. That's it from me. See you next time. Bye-bye.